Welcome back to Cheddar, everyone. The first pitch of the 2021 MLB season took place earlier this afternoon. And as the action gets underway, much of the chatter would normally be about World Series predictions. The Dodgers are the betting favorite in many sports books. Or the $341 million contract extension that Mets star Francisco Lindor signed last night. But this year is different. As we're still in the age of COVID-19, the Washington Nationals season opener postponed earlier today following at least one positive test within the organization. Joining us now is Chris Marinak, who is the Chief Operations and Strategy Officer for Major League Baseball. Great to have you here with us today, and congratulations on the new season starting. It doesn't come without some drama, of course. We've already seen one game postponed. How is the league going to handle some of the potential outbreaks this season compared to last season?
Yeah, thanks for having me. And obviously, we're really excited to be back this season and have fans in our ballparks, which is a little bit of a difference from last year. In terms of managing the pandemic, we have a year under our belt. So I think we feel like we have some experience, and we've added a number of protocols this year to hopefully help with the process. Electronic devices that our players are wearing to manage contact tracing and enhanced testing, a whole host of procedures. So, we did have an issue today. I think out of an abundance of caution, we didn't want to rush into things and risk any additional spread. But hopefully over the course of the season, we'll see that it's a little bit easier to manage this year, particularly once the players get vaccinated.
Yeah, especially with the acceleration in vaccinations. Just as we're talking about this and the likelihoods that we're seeing right now, if there was to be a game canceled for a team for one reason or another, especially in the instance of a positive test, is there kind of a threshold that the league has thought about even prior to the season starting of the number of games that teams would need to be playing for qualification in postseason play?
Just like last year, I don't think we have a standard in advance of the season. I think we're hopeful that given the amount of time we have to finish the season, it ends in October, that we'll be able to find a way to play, most, if not all, the games. And particularly, if you assume that players are going to get vaccinated shortly, and hopefully that means that, we won't really have many stoppages once we get players vaccinated. I think we're really hopeful that there's a good enough window this year to get all the games in, and we're not expecting an issue, as it sits right now.
Certainly. All right. Well, so there's already been a memo issued to teams, I should say, relaxed protocols for vaccinated players, coaches, and staff. How are you working with teams to get to this 85% threshold? And what will teams be able to do for those of us who need to know more about exactly what the operations for some of these teams are going to look like once more of the teams get vaccinated?
Yeah, I think the key is, one, to make sure that when teams are back in their home markets, where they live, they're able to work with hospitals or other local vaccination sites to get players in quickly to get vaccinated, obviously consistent with local guidelines. Once that we are able to get players vaccinated, there's a variety of relaxed restrictions that can go into play, really as a way to motivate players to get vaccinated and to do it quickly. Once 85% of players and staff are vaccinated, there's a whole host of things, including, additional gatherings, not having to quarantine, the ability to even just do something as simple as playing cards on the airplane, which is, obviously a lot of fun for guys and helps pass the time. So, those types of things I think are important for players. The season's a real big grind. Anything we can do to give them some of the, relaxing, measures that we've had in place in prior seasons, I think is something that they really value and appreciate.
Chris, while we have you, there's another story that's making headlines surrounding the 2021 All-Star Game scheduled to be held in Atlanta, Georgia, with corporations and even President Biden publicly criticizing the new voting law recently passed in Georgia. Has the MLB given any thought or serious consideration at this point in time to moving the event to another site?
Yeah, obviously this is an issue that's kind of been rapidly evolving over the last couple of days or week or so. The commissioner came out, I guess, last night or this morning and mentioned the fact that there's a number of active conversations happening right now, internally across the industry. And I think at this point, we're just sort of having a lot of discussions and nothing really firm in terms of how to tackle this item. So we're going to have to see how things evolve over the coming days, but I think as it sits right now, that's the most that we can say about that particular situation.
We know all 30 ballparks, they're going to be hosting fans this season as well. Average capacity, 28%. Teams seem to be setting up their own capacities in some instances. The Texas Rangers, they are filling all 40,000 seats for their opener. Will the league put criteria in place to ramp up attendance throughout the season?
What we've told our clubs is that they need to work with their local, municipalities to determine what's appropriate and safe, in each market. Obviously, the virus, has its own trends, in various geographies around the country. And there's, just a variety of other factors that go into play around transport to the ballpark, what's happening in local communities. So we've really told the clubs to work with their local health officials and figure out what's appropriate for each market. The one thing we did do is mandate mask wearing, no matter where you are. We think it's really important, and we know for a fact that mask wearing does cut down on transmission. So we felt like it was important to mandate mask wearing. But outside of that, it really comes down to each of the local jurisdictions. And as you know, from what we've seen so far, it varies substantially across the country, just given the various local circumstances. I think we'll continue to watch that as the trends evolve over the coming months. But obviously, hopefully, as we get into the spring and fall, we're really hopeful that we're going to get back to full capacity across all 30 ballparks.
I got to kind of go rapid fire here on these last couple questions, but first and foremost, we got to talk about how fans are consuming the games right now. They can now make custom highlights for social media. How is this going to work as well, given the streaming environment, the league's stance on video rights? Will this change things? And several pro leagues have not been as forthcoming with highlights on social media. So, how do you look at this new instance of not just streaming, but also social media consumption from the fan perspective?
Yeah, we've always felt like technology is a way to facilitate and enable our next generation of fans. And we've tried to be as progressive as we can in terms of making highlights and other things available to our fan base. We mentioned our MLB film room product, which rolled out at the end of last season. We basically democratized access to all of our highlights for any fan. You can go on our website right now and search every single pitch of every single game. You can look for, who hit a home run on a 3-2 count in the 8th inning on a night game, and make a highlight reel if you want. And then you can do whatever you want with that highlight reel. You can share it with friends. You can post it on social media. And so we've really leaned in on this idea that younger fans want to be able to consume content on the platforms that they're interested in consuming that content. And so
Sure.
We've done as much as we could to really make that content available to them, and we've seen really, really great response with it so far.
Chris, got to talk about a history-making event today. Playing their first game under Kim Ng, the first female GM for a male pro sports team. The Florida Marlins is where they find themselves. Do you anticipate that we will see more women elevated to higher roles across MLB organizations in the future? And what can the MLB, from its organizational perspective, do to ensure that there are these opportunities and there is that advancement?
Yeah, I think we've already seen, other roles, coaches, staff throughout a number of clubs that have added female coaches and other members of the staff. It's certainly an area of focus for us, and we've been investing really heavily in trying to create opportunities for a diverse workforce. I worked with Kim as a colleague for a long time. She's an incredible, employee, really, really smart person. And I think, well-deserved, for her to finally get an opportunity. And I think you're going to see the Marlins do really, really well. But there's a lot of others in this industry, females, that are really, really, really solid. And I think you're going to see that as we go forward, more and more opportunities will come to bear for female employees.
All right, certainly. We're going to be watching close this first game for the Miami Marlins. Chris Marinak, who's the Chief Operations and Strategy Officer for Major League Baseball. Thanks so much for joining us here today, Chris.